Farabo wa tenga kwano Mr. Mohapi mo sekolo go nya letsatsi la gompieno jaaka re go direla manta ga mongwe le mongwe it might be the last, we don't know me sekolo se sona le bo se tla tleng se tle mo bokhutlong me we are hopeful gore go tla siaba ra jalo go Mr. Mohapi mo sekolo go nya letsatsi la gompieno mo le goreng wa go rnela jalo the Monday motivation mo letsatsing la gompieno Mr. Mohapi re go dumedise re go amogele gape mo tsatsing le la manta ga ibile ke lebetse gore ke manta ga bo felo wa kgwedi eno ya Mupitwe, the last Monday of March. I hope you're doing good and your weekend was great. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. My weekend was excellent. I enjoyed it very much.
Nice one.
Thank you.
We are happy that you enjoyed your weekend, sir.
Yeah.
And we are looking forward to so fa ka tsela le bogontseng jang for re rotloetsa mo letsatsing la gompieno.
Yes.
I khona jala le tselo go dumedisa le moretsi.
Ke dumedisa baretsi botlhe ba Kurara FM. Thank you so much. I hope you are sitting down, relaxed, ready for your Monday motivation. Thank you.
On the light note, by the end of this week, o tla bo khata moriri.
Yes. Oh yes, definitely. I'm going to be cutting my hair. That period is over now, so yeah.
Take it away, sir.
No, as we continue, I actually had quite a lot of inboxes this time around.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people, because last time Haribuaka Focus, we touched on the two different main personalities, Sabatu, which is the introvert and the extrovert.
Yeah.
And a lot of people felt that they needed more detail because some of them were hearing this for the first time to say, introvert, extrovert. Yeah. So they wanted to know, what does it actually mean? How do I even tell whether I'm an introvert or extrovert? So I'm going to touch on a few questions that you need to ask yourself to tell whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And what I'll do is I'll ask the question and I'll explain how an introvert looks like and how an extrovert looks like in that context.
Awesome.
So the first question, I'm trying to compare the two. So I'm going to say, how do you spend your time? An introvert normally spends his time in isolation.
Okay.
An introvert isolates. An introvert prefers staying at home, reading, looking at stuff. And even if they do trips or leave the house, they want to go to places like museums, and so for you will seldomly find an introvert in a concert.
Yeah.
They prefer quiet places. They prefer sitting and writing. Those are people that are normally very good with journals because they sit and write. And then an extrovert wants group dinners.
Okay.
They want to go out. They want to meet people. They want to always be around people. They want to make sure they can actually spend time alone. When they spend time alone, they actually lose a lot of interest in a lot of things. So this also goes back to the sources of energy that the two different personalities actually have.
Okay.
You will find that when an introvert wants to recharge, an introvert will sit at home. An introvert will spend quality time with family. An introvert, if he's a parent, he will spend time with the kids. An extrovert will want to be in the streets. They will want to go out, they will want to have dinners, they will want to do something outside so that that's how they recharge as opposed to introverts. So the second question is, do you prefer large or smaller crowds? And I think I've answered that already. An introvert will prefer to be in a smaller crowd of people as opposed to a larger crowd of people. So this plays a big role in how you then determine the personalities. So if you're an extrovert, you always want to be around people. You always want loud spaces. You want to be, the center of everything that happens. So how do you feel comfortable or anxious around strangers? An introvert around strangers feels uncomfortable.
Oh, okay.
Because it takes them long to develop that contact with a person, that connection with the person to a level where they are comfortable enough to speak. So, but an extrovert, even when they meet new people, they will speak to people as if they've known them for years. And you wonder, how long have you known each other? And they will say, no, we've just met now. And you're thinking, how is that even possible? But an introvert, it's easy to tell, to say, you people don't know each other. It's easy because an introvert is a person that's always keeping to themselves. Now, what kind of working environment, if we talk careers and so on, what kind of working environment does an introvert actually enjoy as opposed to an extrovert? Okay. An introvert enjoys a peaceful, a quiet, where he's got plenty of time to be alone and be independent and do tasks alone they don't actually prefer working in teams. They prefer working alone. But an extrovert, when they're sitting alone and they have to do tasks, it's a hard thing. I'll give another example.
Yes.
During COVID, that isolation 21 days period, for introverts, that was heaven. Because an introvert for the first time could sit and not be bothered by anyone.
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to bother them, they'll say, we are isolated. But an extrovert had problems because they now had to find ways. That's why a lot of them would be very active on social media during that period, because they would try to interact with people because they are alive around people, and it becomes difficult for them. So how do you behave in a social setting? An introvert in a social setting, they are shy and they are reserved. An extrovert, they are outgoing and social. Those are the ones that are, what you call them, the center of attraction. They are all over the place. You know, they are the loudest. They are always on. And you know, I was even saying to one of my friends, they were talking to me earlier to say, so now what kind of a person are you?
Yes.
Are you an introvert or extrovert? And to their surprise, I told them, I'm actually an introvert.
Yeah.
And they said, introvert, you?
Wow.
How is it that you talk so much and you are out there meeting people and you do public speaking, you preach at church where there's crowds of people? How do you manage to do that? And I'm going to explain that today, because this is actually the crux of what I want to talk about today. To say you need to understand. Now, what I want to touch on today is a few things that surround the introverted and the extroverted people. Because when you are born, you need to understand that you are born either an introvert or an extrovert purely based on your personality. Your personality is what determines whether you are an introvert or an extrovert. Now, because it's a gift that you were born with, there is no negative or positive one. You can't say because a person is an introvert, then they are better than an extrovert, or an extrovert is better than an introvert. No, it's got advantages and disadvantages. And what a person needs to do is to develop a greater understanding of that personality trait so that they know what is it that they need to do to develop. So one of the things that I had to do in my life, I was fortunate enough that throughout my education, I had opportunities where there were institutes in our time that were training people on certain personality capabilities and how to enhance your ability. You know, they would do leadership to presentation skills. They would do, what do they call it? Emotional intelligence and all of that stuff. So all of those things are some of the things that I had to pick up over time. And what they do is, for an example, let me give you a depiction of what happens when you are born. So when you are born, say you are born an introvert, you will find that the balance sits like this. You are an introvert. It's elevated on the one side and it's low on the other side. What your responsibility is, this is your God-given capability in terms of your personality. That is in line with your personality. Now, it's not either, there is nothing negative about that. So you can't say, nah, I am not happy that God gave me an introverted personality. I wish I was an extrovert. Because there are things you can do to now lift up this other side, and it goes through what we call training, which is what I was talking about. That if you train yourself based on the goals you want to achieve in life, you are going to develop yourself in areas of your weakest, so that you can develop in those areas to reach equilibrium or a level of balance, where now your training has now balanced with your personality traits, and you are able to now lift everything all at once at the same time. What this means is that you carry the responsibility as a person to say, how do I develop myself in areas where I know that I am lacking as a person? This requires you to introspect. This is one of the reasons why when we started this whole thing, I said in the beginning, January, I said, have a goal. Yes. Have a plan. Have a plan that you have put in place to say, this is where I want to be at the end of the year. Because every other thing that you do to develop yourself, you are developing yourself towards that particular goal you have set for yourself. Yes, because it is hard to develop yourself when you do not know where you are going. Now, let me say a few things before I go. You are born with traits that you have because of the personality that you have. So those traits are there and you can't get rid of them because this is who you are. Over and above this is what we can call the act of God, or the act of his limitless wisdom. You know, God in his wisdom, he knows what to give you for you to actually succeed in life. God could have not given me an extroverted personality because the kind of things that I prefer as a person, people who know me will know. I prefer indoors more than outdoors.
Okay.
Even though I talk as much as I'm talking right now, the only reason why I have the ability to talk the way that I talk is because I developed my public speaking skills.
Oh, okay.
I actually took the time to do that.
Nice.
Now, to some people it might sound, no, this guy is extroverted. I'm actually not. I'm an introvert. But I took the time to make sure that there are those traits that, and people who have known me personally, they will know that even when there's conflict, if I find myself in the middle of conflict, I shut down for a while.
Okay.
Because I'm not an extrovert. I shut down and I think deeply and I take my time to digest what is happening before I can actually respond. If I was an extrovert, what would I do? When I meet conflict, I would immediately attend to it.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that are different about people, but you can develop yourself. It does not mean you need to keep yourself in that space where you feel continuously disadvantaged because you are either an introvert or an extrovert. Yeah. So there are advantages and disadvantages to this. There is neither bad or good in any of them. It is what you do with that personality trait that determines whether this thing actually works for you. Awesome. So how do you do it? How do you do it? There are two things you do.
Yes, sir.
First, you set goals for yourself. You need to set goals. And secondly, you have to deal with distractions. And I think I dealt a little bit with this last week. Yeah. So these are the two main legs to developing yourself in creating that balance, whether you're an introvert or extrovert. Because besides that, you need to understand that, yes, I can set goals. Say, for an example, you take 5 introverted people. Yeah. The type of training that each of them has to go through can be different.
Okay.
What determines that training is their goals. Maybe one wants to be a CEO.
Yes.
That person must do leadership. That person must do management. Yes. That person must do self-confidence and affirmations, what you call it, emotional intelligence. There's a lot of things that they need to do to develop themselves towards a direction of being a CEO. I don't know if you're with me. If the other introverted person says, I just want to be a teacher, maybe they need to focus more on being technically confident. Have self-esteem, have public speaking skills, have certain capabilities that will allow you as a teacher to be able to have perfect delivery and do what you do best. Maybe another one says, I just want to be a writer. Yeah. As a writer, all that person needs to do, they can go and learn how to write. They can do linguistics in school and do also, but they can actually keep to themselves and stay at home and not ever actually have to interact and be public. Think about it this way. How many writers of books that you have read do you actually even know in person? Some of them are faceless. You know the name, but you've never actually seen the person. I don't know if I'm making any sense. Because those type of people that are writers, creative people, most of them you will find that they're actually introverts. Except if they are those type of people that are in the arts where they need to be out there and interact. Those people tend to just generally be extroverts. But there are those that are even in that space, they're introverts. But it's because they have developed their acting skill enough for them to be able to do acting well. But they are still introverts. So it doesn't mean when you are an introvert, you are disadvantaged. It also does not mean when you're an extrovert, you are disadvantaged. Wherever you are, you can develop yourself. But it starts with a goal. Why do we have to set goals for ourselves? I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you have to set goals for yourself. Yes, sir. The first reason is that a goal motivates you to change your behavior. Okay. Your goals will always force you to align your behavior to foster and support what your goals require. And this becomes very important because it will help you to be able to determine the kind of behavior you can allow yourself to be attracted towards. The kind of activities that you can allow yourself to be attracted towards because you know where you are going in life. And you understand what it takes for you. This is what I was saying last week, to say you will set for yourself things that it's like a pilot plane. I call it a pilot plane. You know, before a pilot flies, yes, it's the same as a navigator. He knows he's got a navigation that shows him that when he takes off, this is how he's going to fly. At a certain point, he will swing to the right. There's a point where he's going to turn. Yeah. There's a point where he will have to lift his elevation past a certain height. You know, there are certain things that he needs to do, but he knows all of those things before he takes off. Okay. So whatever he does while he's flying are things that were already predetermined before he left. And this is the power of a plan. A plan allows you to predict what needs to happen even when you are going, even if there are distractions or there are things that are changing along the way. You are able to adjust accordingly. Why? You have a plan. Yes, sir. That is why in the beginning of the year I said, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And this becomes important. The second thing that you need to realize where planning is concerned or setting goals is that they provide you with direction. Powerful. There is nothing. Let me tell you something. You can be the most creative person in the world. You can be the most intelligent person in the world. But if you don't have goals, even people who are less creative than you, they can do better than you when they have goals. Right. Nothing beats setting up goals and putting goals in place for yourself. Nothing beats that. Because they direct, they force you to live in a certain way. That is why I was using an example about some of the most successful people in the world. I said, if you look at those people, one of the things you will realize is that they live a narrow life. And it's not because, I mean, look at Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, for an example, that man has been eating at the same McDonald's for over 20 years. Same McDonald's. He eats 2 different types of meals depending on his budget. And his meal is, in our terms, it's less than $50.
Okay.
Now, when he arrives there, he wakes up in the morning, even the wife knows.
Yeah.
He wakes up, he checks the stock market. If the stock market has done well, he will buy a meal 45 rand.
Okay.
If the stock market did not do so well, which means he didn't make as much money, he will buy a meal 30 rand.
Oh.
And even when he arrives there at the McDonald's, they know, do you want this one or that one? And he gives them the money for it. And they already know. So he lives such a narrow life that most of the things that he does are predictable, simply because he's got a goal, he's got a plan in place, and that allows him to narrow his life. And let me tell you the advantage of narrowing your life. It reduces the amount of distractions you can have in your life.
Wow. Powerful.
And when you can reduce distractions, I am telling you, you are setting yourself up for so much greater success for yourself. The last one, the reason why we set goals because goals build character. Goals build character. And this becomes important. That is why, even with myself, I know for a fact that every time I make a mistake or I miss the mark, is because I have lost sight of the goal.
Okay.
And many a times for me to realign and get back to the right space, I need to sit down and say, what does my blueprint say? What does my goal actually say? Then I will align my actions, I will align my thoughts, I will align my speech, I will align everything that I do in line with where I'm supposed to go. This is why I was talking about alignment last week. That every once in a while you might come off alignment, but make sure that when you do, there is a plan for you to refer back to so that you can realign and find yourself in the right space. This becomes important because then you are able to set goals that actually work for you, not goals that you heard about on social media or goals or goals that you hear another person wanting to achieve, but goals that actually work for you based on whether you are an introvert or an extroverted person. There are careers that extroverted people can go into. There are careers that they can't go into. The same for introverted people. There are careers they can go into. There are careers they can't go into. Whatever career you choose has everything to do with your personality. This is one of the reasons why I believe a lot of people are unhappy in this day and age because they don't choose careers based on what they enjoy. They choose careers based on how much money they can make.
That's true.
And that creates a problem because you get used to money. You can be paid 100,000 even here on Kurara FM. They can pay you 100,000 every month. I'm telling you, after a year, that 100,000 doesn't have as much effect as it has when you had when you got it the first time. Simply because you get used to things, and when you get used to them, they don't have as much impact on you as they did when you started. Now, the second leg to this is dealing with distractions. We spoke about this a little bit last week, and I said one of the things that you need to do when you're dealing with distractions is to allow yourself focus. Focus is also based on your goals. You cannot focus on something that does not exist. You need to set goals for yourself so that you know when you are focusing, what is it that you are focusing on. Now, this becomes important. Now, let me touch on a few things on focus, or on dealing with distractions. One of the things you need to make sure that you deal with where distractions are concerned is your environment.
Your environment.
You need to check the kind of places you expose yourself to.
Okay.
Let me give you an example.
Yes, sir.
If I am in the middle of studying, maybe I'm doing matric this year, and I'm talking to students, you are doing matric. There are certain things in your lifestyle and in your habits that you need to cut out.
Okay.
For the sake of increasing your level of focus for you to do well in your matric.
Yes.
It has very little to do with whether you are intelligent or not. But it has everything to do with making sure that you reduce distraction. Now, let me show you something about intelligent people, or rather creative and talented people, that is actually very dangerous. When I was growing up in high school, they used to tell us a story about a race between a tortoise and a rabbit.
Yes.
And a rabbit, because he knew he's faster than the tortoise, what did he do? He was running, stop, and interact and get off the track and talk to people while he's waiting for the tortoise is coming slow. He would sometimes even sleep a little bit, catch a nap, wake up, run a bit faster, run a bit more, and pass the tortoise and go further. And now this is what happened. That rabbit became so distracted in its ability to run as fast as it can. It became so distracted that the tortoise won the game.
How dangerous.
The tortoise won the race simply because that rabbit was distracted. So it does not matter how gifted you are. If you can't focus, Look, I can tell you right now, there is no human being that has been created by God that God does not have good plans for your life.
Yo.
There's not even a single human being.
Yeah.
And I dare anyone that thinks here now there is no plan for. I give you, sit with me for 20 minutes. I will prove to you that God has a big plan for your life. And you are the one that's going to say it with your own mouth. Because there are things about you that are so advantageous that God has given you to make sure that you achieve the best that you can. All you need to do is focus on developing your weaknesses into strong points.
Wow.
Develop those weaknesses. Do not ignore them. Don't accept that you have a weakness. Take the time. There are things you can do. There is nothing that is without remedy.
Yeah.
You can remedy even your weaknesses. You can remedy even your shortcomings. And this is important. Now, your environment is one of those things you need to be careful of. What type of environment do you find yourself in? How do you check your environment? Whenever you are with your friends or the people that you love, the ones that you spend a lot of time with, how do you feel after you have left? How do you feel when you are alone and you think about that encounter? Is it a feeling that is short-lived, where you feel excited because you had fun? After that, it's just, you are now despondent, you are not happy, you are discouraged. What actually happens after you spend time with the people you spend a lot of time with? That will tell you how healthy your environment is. Sometimes we tolerate unhealthy environments because we feel we need people around us. You shouldn't be afraid to be alone.
Yes, sir.
You should never be afraid to be alone. Be alone if you have to be, but make sure your environment is healthy for you. The second one is behavior. The behavior one is actually quite interesting because you will find a lot of times that the type of behavior that you adopt as a person is influenced by your company.
Okay.
That's why, some people say bad company corrupts good conduct. And it becomes very important to understand that, to say the kind of environment you find yourself in affects how you ultimately become as a person and how you act. Have you ever been around a person so much that or rather have known two people that are so close to each other that even when they laugh the same?
It's true.
Because behavior is contagious. Behavior is contagious. Wow. It's like a flu. It's like every other disease. You cough, if I'm too close to you, I catch the cough, I have a flu too. And that's how it works. Behavior is contagious. You cannot be around a person and not be affected by their behavior.
Yeah.
That is why it becomes important for you to be careful the type of people you spend your time around, because they can influence the type of things you do. Look at some of the most successful people in the world. They don't have more than 5 friends around them. They don't. Some have even less. Some even have one friend to say, this is the only friend I have. I mean, look at Warren Buffett. He spends more time with Bill Gates, a fellow billionaire.
Yeah. Wow.
They fly together, they do stuff together. Does he have any other friends? Yes, he's got. But they are his business associates. I'm not saying people should not have friends. Have friends. But make sure that the associations you have are healthy for you. I would rather be alone than have associations that are going to delay me getting to my destination. The other one I want to touch on is feelings.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me mention this because this is very important.
Okay.
Sometimes when we have things to do in life, our feelings can become a big problem for us. Let me just talk to career people.
Okay.
Career people might have 5 or 10 things on a list when you arrive at the office in the morning. Some of them are small, some of them are big. What a lot of people will do is they will spend a lot of time talking, and extroverts actually have this as a big challenge. Okay. They'll spend a lot of time talking in the morning. Before he does anything at work, when he arrives, he has to drink tea.
Yeah.
And during that tea, he's talking to people. He's losing an hour and a half in the morning. Just talking to people and getting, sometimes even more, depending on how exciting the chat is. On Mondays is even worse because they have the whole weekend to talk about. Before you know it, that person arrives at the office, he's got other things to do, and there's very limited time left for them to finish. You know what they will do? They will get themselves occupied with small tasks that have very little impact on their output. And then they feel good that they did at least I did something for the day. I'll do the rest tomorrow. But check what has happened. You have wasted time pushing an agenda over things that are small, but you are not really achieving much.
Wow.
And this becomes a very big problem. That is why I was saying actually to some people, I was talking to another guy and he was saying to me, but I'm not as productive at work as I want to be. I said, but you must look at your energy levels. A lot of people are energetic in the morning, but they use that energy to talk other things that have nothing to do with work. By 11, 12 o'clock when tiredness comes in, it's only then they want to sit down and start working. They're already getting tired. Their energy levels are low. So what do? The time you have energy, it's like how I teach prayer at church.
Okay.
I teach prayer the same way. I say, do not try to read the Bible and pray when you are exhausted. Do it when you have energy. Some of you have energy in the morning before you go to work. Wake up 30 minutes extra earlier than the time you normally wake up at. Read the Bible, pray, and then go and do the rest of the stuff. At least you have energy, you are awake that time. Some people have energy at night. What do you do with that energy at night? Do you use it properly? It's a problem if you don't use it properly. So all of those things play a very critical role. The last thing I want to touch as I close is that be intentional with your time. Schedule your time and learn to say no to things. Learn to tell people, no, I can't. No, I don't have time. No, I'm not available. This is your time. You need to develop yourself. If you don't, you are the one who's going to be shortchanged and disadvantaged. That's my motivation for Monday. Thank you so much.
Wow. No, I'm happy. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and go and continue your enjoying your Monday. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Aha.
Appreciate it.